Greetings, ghouls and gals, here we are. This is it. From the first appearance of the twin-tailed comet high in the sky to now, we have given our best go at rewriting the end times while trying to keep the core of it as similar as possible. There have been some great changes. I mean big changes with that, by the way, I'm not tooting my own horn. There have been some big names lost along the way too. Thorgrim Grudgebearer, Nagash, the Green Knight, and many more have perished to get the Order tied to Middenheim. The once proud city of Ulrich now stands in ruins, but within those broken walls and abandoned streets lies an artifact powerful enough to end the world, or perhaps save it. Before we begin the last leg of our journey, I'd like to thank everyone who's been along for the ride, whether you love the rewrite, hate it, have seen one video or all of them. I couldn't have kept going without you, so thank you. With that out of the way, let us begin. We open on a cool night as our heroes find themselves back in the open air for the first time since fleeing Talabheim. They are thankful for this moment of rest, and Emperor Karl Franz is incredibly tired. Even in his armour, sitting on the hard ground, he feels as though he could fall asleep at any moment. It is Deathclaw who keeps him awake, nudging him each time he is getting close to dozing off. Years have passed since Franz first saw the twin-tailed comet in the sky, and yet so much has happened it is difficult to tell how many. At first he'd been foolish enough to see it as a sign of potential prosperity. Now he realises he should have known better. He should have been better. Had he not been distrustful to Volton, had he given the boy Galmaraz, perhaps he would not have joined Chaos. The hammer shifts in Franz's grip. He can do nothing about that now, but hopes Sigmar will be with him when the next battle comes. Deathclaw rears its head as someone approaches. It is Teclis, Warden of the White Tower. He looks a shadow of his former self. Gaunt, withered, years beyond his age, yet he is still their best hope. Teclis tells Franz they are ready, and the Emperor of Man pulls himself to his feet to meet with his fellow leaders of the Ordertide. Tonight marks the final meeting of Order before the Battle of Middenheim to come. Alariel the Everqueen, Malekith the Witch King, Helebron, Miao Ying, Teclis, Grombrindal, King Lu and Leon Kerr, Malobord, Ariel, Durthu, Vlad von Karstein, and Arkhan the Black are all discussing strategies to try and defend the city as best they can. Silence falls as Karl Franz steps in. Despite him being just a man, he has become a figurehead for the forces of Order. In Ostermark, it was reported he had died, so Vlad has taken to calling him the first unliving emperor. Franz puts his hammer on the table and says the priority for the coming battle is simple. No one is to harm Teclis. With their numbers they can push back Archaon's army, but not his demons. However, if Teclis is allowed to shut the gate, then this invasion comes to an end. Alariel then raises the somewhat valid point that Middenheim is not defensible enough and will likely become their tomb. Athaloran would be a much safer place to make their stand, even if it means giving Archaon control of the Chaos Gate. There are murmurs of agreement among others. Many even point to the old world being lost anyway, and say they should instead focus on defending areas like Ulthuan or Cathay, where there's more of a chance to rebuild. Quickly, the forces of Order start bickering over whether they should even risk their lives of their people on this battle. They've already seen that Middenheim is easy enough for a powerful army to take when they fought Archaon for it. A call for silence then echoes in the hall as Balthazar Gelt steps in. Flanked by Joseph Bugman, he takes his place at this council and calls out the entire room as defeatist cowards. In their minds, Order has already lost. Archaon is a powerful foe, one that alone would defeat any of their armies easily, but if they stand together, truly together, then Chaos will lose. That seems to be a fact of history the others have forgotten. Balthazar gives Franz a nod and allows the Emperor space to speak. There, Karl Franz reiterates that the plan is simple. Using the city as best they can, their goal is simply to stall, while losing as few men as possible so that once the ritual is complete, they can turn the battle against Chaos. Not too far from the Order camp, Volton too is staring at the night sky. He remembers when he and his family would look up at the stars, trying to see shapes within them. Archaon comes over and stands next to Volton. The two are not friends, nor are they close, as Volton still feels fear whenever the Everchosen is nearby, but there's no one else that the boy speaks with. Volton tells Archaon he is thinking of his family, and how they were killed by beastmen. Archaon has no love for the beastmen, but he holds no hate for them either. It is in their nature to be despicable things, just as it is this world's nature to be cruel. They must make use of the beastmen as they must make use of all the powers of chaos if they are to bring change to the world. Without change, there will only be more tragedies like that which befell Volton's family. Order has been the dominant force on this world for millennia. and nothing has changed for the better. Before leaving him to his rest, Archaon gives Volton a gift. It is a hammer, forged by the Chaos Dwarves before their empire fell. It is said to match the strength of Galmaraz and can penetrate any armour. Just before we get to the day of the battle, there are a few moments I'd like to focus on. First is the fated meeting of Malekith and Grombrindal. Malekith has been avoiding the White Dwarf since he first spotted him, but after the first council meeting, Grombrindal approaches the Witch King. Malekith, full of regret, falls to one knee in front of the old Dwarven King and asks for forgiveness. Grombrindal simply slaps him on the shoulder and says he's got many more grudges to wipe before he can be bothered dealing with such a piddly elf. Elsewhere in the camp of elves, Alarielle approaches Hellebrun. The Hag Queen is on her guard, as Alarielle is joined by her massive bodyguard Durthu. The Ever-Queen wishes for them to put their feuding behind them. Hellebrun says they have done, for now, but Alarielle wants no more ill will, and so she asks if the Hag will act as her personal guard alongside Durthu for the battle to come. Unlike in the original End Times, Hellebrun doesn't break down from regret for the slaughter she's committed, but she does see, after a long conversation with Alarielle, that the two can bond over some things. Mostly, they spend their time hating on Morathi, but that's enough for Hellebrun to agree to the proposition. Over in the Bretonnian camp, Luan Leoncoeur has trouble sleeping. He is visited by the Lady, who wishes him luck in the coming battle. He can tell something's wrong with her, and she eventually reveals that she's sick. A plague brewed by one of Nurgle's children has reached her, meaning her powers will be weakened. Luan is not about to allow that, and so he tells her that as soon as the battle begins, he will take the head of the biggest Nurgle demon he can find. The day of the battle dawns. Tensions are high, and as Teclis begins his ritual, Karl Franz sees the hordes of chaos looming over the horizon. As he rallies the men around him, Franz notices the sky darken. From dozens of gaping portals above, thousands of demons immediately begin pouring out, attempting to ambush Order as the main Chaos Force charges from the front. Franz, Imric, the Cathaya dragons, and anyone that can get in the air begin to take the fight to Kairos Fateweaver's advance force, but the Tzeentch's troops seem more concerned with attacking the guns and cavalry below. To save the latter, Luan Leoncoeur leads a great charge forwards, so that they may at least meet their enemy in battle before they're picked apart from above. If Kairos is allowed to roam free, then these portals will only keep spawning more demons. Franz tries to cut through to the Lord of Change, but he's bogged down by the sheer weight of the enemies coming at him. Then, from behind, the Emperor of Man hears the thunder of cannon fire. Demons are falling from the sky like snow as the Iron Dragon Zhao Ming blasts apart the flyers with Balthazar Gelt on his back. Using their combined transmuting might, the pair of sorcerers essentially made the dragon a flying tank, attaching large metal plates to his head and back, and then putting guns on those plates. It's a bit silly, yes, but we're here for some cool imaginative visuals, and that's what we're getting. Gelt's magics might be considered heresy to Franz, but he can't help but be thankful for the sorcerer as he blasts his way towards Kairos Fateweaver, allowing the Emperor to join the main battle. The forces of order and chaos clash on the ground. Luan's cavalry charge peels away to allow the foot troops to get some damage in while reeling around for another charge. Malabord proves his worth once more as a warrior even equal to his father, cutting down demons and elite chaos warriors alike. Just as Luan is gearing up for another charge, he smells a foul odour in the air. Kugath Plaguefather is brewing a plague at the back of the Chaos lines, and if he's left untouched, that sickness will prove deadlier than any blade for Order's chances of winning. On his hippogriff, Luan takes off. Malabord asks to go with him, but is told once again he's needed at the front. And needed he is. Well, everyone is needed really, as before Order can even get to grips with the strength of the initial Chaos charge, hundreds of men, elves, and dwarves are swept aside by mighty blows of Kolek Sunita's hammer. The great Dragon Ogre poses a larger threat than almost any other Chaos warrior, and yet he is so large, he seems almost impossible to take down. That is, until Gotrek Gurnisson takes the field. After killing Throg alongside Grombrindal, the dwarf is looking for a mightier foe. And who is better to slay the ultimate monster than the ultimate slayer, after all? Gotrek manages to halt Kolek's momentum, allowing a moment of respite on the Order side. Across the battlefield, the forces of death meet once more as Archon the Black and Vlad von Carstein come face to face with Manfred. Vlad tells Archon to go and support Gelt in taking down Kairos, as this is family business. Indeed it is, says Manfred as he reveals a returning Conrad and Isabella von Carstein. Archaon watches on as the battle unfolds. He knows he has the numbers, the strength, but Order are fighting like desperate beasts. They also have a great amount of magical might, enough to shut the Chaos Gate he dug up in the centre of the city. Even now, Archaon can feel the pull of Teclis' ritual, the waning power of the demons around him. He soon realises the extremes of Teclis's plan. The Warden of the White Tower is not merely looking to dampen chaos and the winds of magic, he's looking to shut them out entirely. In a way, Archaon can't help but respect this plan, but he knows those efforts will be for naught. He gives the order and his Swords of Chaos make their way to the front alongside Volton. Overhead, Luan Leoncoeur is nearing his target. Kugath Plaguefather is none the wiser that a lance is aimed straight for his heart. Luan is not alone in this mission, as Yuan Bo has joined him alongside a retinue of flying Cathayan cavalry to ensure the Bretonnian king makes it back alive. The Plaguefather isn't alone though, and Valkyr the Bloody has been charged with protecting him. Yuan Bo takes on Valkyr while Luan fights Kugath below. After a tough fight, Yuan Bo and Luan come out on top. Luan's mount, Bequis's wing is injured in the fight, causing Luan to finish the fight on foot. With Kugath sent back to Papa Nurgle, the air feels cleaner and Luan hears his lady thank him. Just as he readies himself to find a way back to safety of the Order line, Luan turns around to find himself looking at the Everchosen. Yuan Bo steps in between the king and Archaon, ready to fight a battle he will surely lose. Before Luan can join him, he feels himself pulled from the ground and lifted into a saddle. Malabord has come to grab him, and Luan orders Bequis to flee as father and son cut their way back towards Middenheim. In the centre of the melee, Gotrek finds himself in a losing battle against Kolek. The Sun Eater is simply too big to be brought low. Luckily, Gotrek isn't alone in this fight. Taking a moment to separate himself from his Everqueen, Durthu steps in to add some much-needed size, and Imric of Calador flies in from above, searching for weak points with his lance. As Kolek still proves to be too big to fail, Imric flies high in the air. Looking across the battlefield, he sees the mighty Iron Bros of Gelt and Zhao Ming, with a little help from Archon, blast Kairos Fateweaver to chicken-sized chunks, and then he bears down, gaining momentum until he rams his lance into Kolek's heart. This mortal wound isn't enough to stop Kolek, who wrenches Imric from his saddle, shatters his bones in his grip, and throws him to the ground. Durthu blocks the hammer aimed for Imric's head, allowing Gotrek a chance to clamber atop Kolek and remove his head. Unfortunately for Gotrek, another chance for his demise has passed, but roars of defiance echo along Order's lines as they prove they will not fall to Kolek Sun Eater. As Durthu picks up the broken but still breathing body of Imric, an old enemy of Alarielle has picked now as their time to strike, and Kari slips past Everqueen's honour guard, and while Durthu is off dealing with Kolek, it appears Alarielle will have to deal with this threat alone. If the Everqueen falls, the healing that has kept so many troops in the fight will disappear. Alarielle is no pushover, but Nkari has brought plenty of backup. Hellebrand dives in the way of the Everqueen and the Keeper of Secrets. Finding an outlet for her rage, Hellebrand feels the wrath of Cain flow through her like never before. For a brief moment, her skill with the blade becomes unmatched, and she helps the Everqueen send Nkari packing. Back at the von Karstein family reunion, Vlad finds himself being able to keep up with Manfred and Conrad, but each time he thinks he's about to land on blow on one of them, Isabella steps in the way. It's clear that Manfred's new chaos powers have allowed him to turn his former family members into slaves. Vlad would not hesitate about putting Manfred and Conrad back in the ground, but to see his Isabella return to him gives him pause. That brief moment is all Manfred needs to strike. He slices through Vlad's armour, placing his father figure on his knees. In his last moments, Vlad simply laughs at Manfred. He tells Manfred how pathetic he is, crawling from one master to another. Knowing his sword will fail him, Vlad instead switches to his silver tongue. He tells Manfred Archaon will betray him, that he's going to be a pawn in another man's game yet again. He is a failure, a being capable of only being in second place. Overcome with rage, Manfred decapitates Vlad, and with Vlad gone, a great number of undead go with him. Up in the sky, Karl Franz readies himself to go and join the front lines again when Be'lakor tackles him to the ground. Both Demon and Griffin plummet towards the ground, with Franz unable to escape the strength of Be'lakor's grip. At the last second, Deathclaw tears away so that it and its master aren't splattered on the ground. Still, Karl Franz finds himself thrown from his saddle, skittering across the battlefield. Deathclaw bravely makes a stand against Be'lakor, but the Griffin is overpowered. Its death cry alerts a nearby Teclis, though, who tries to listen to what's happening while focusing on his ritual. Be'lakor and Karl Franz duel for a short amount of time. Franz cannot claim the prowess of a Tyrion, Malekith or Gotrek, and so things look bleak for him, especially following the injuries caused by his fall from Deathclaw. With no one nearby to help, it seems the Emperor of Man will meet his end here. Be'lakor smiles as he brings his blade high, only to be blasted by a bolt of light. Teclis has left his post for but a brief moment, knowing that without Karl Franz there will be no morale left in the Empire. Be'lakor readies himself to face the Warden of the White Tower when Miao Ying bites down on the demon's arm and takes him back to a battle in the sky. Franz accosts Teclis for his recklessness and tells him to get back to his ritual. Returning to the Chaos Gate, Teclis finds he can no longer tame it. Warp flames lick at his robes and the pressure from the magics within make his head feel like it's going to explode. But just as he's about to lose all control, Teclis feels two hands press on his back. Balthazar, Gelt and Arkan have come to lend their aid. Together, they can hold back the gate, but this means the Order will have to retreat to the city so that they can withstand the oncoming Chaos Hordes without two key mages. Malekith and Grombrindal ensure the Order can retreat without concern. They fight side to side, cutting down even the most elite Chaos Warriors with ease. Archaon takes note of Malekith and readies himself to duel the Witch King when a great roar forces both sides to turn. Grimgor Ironhide is back. Bloodied, bruised, and angrier than ever, his horde crashes into whatever it can find. As soon as Skarsnik hears that great war echo in the air, he manages to free himself in the ensuing chaos. He frees Gobbler from his cage, and they both set about sneaking their way towards the Green Tide. On the way, Gobbler eats a disguised changeling who is trying to get close to Karl Franz in the form of the bird, accidentally saving the Emperor. Grimgor's return seems to spell the end for Order. Grimgor rushes into battle, and Grombrindal and Malekith meet him there. Even with their powers combined, Grimgor seems an unstoppable killing machine. His sheer brute strength overcomes the tired Grombrindal, and with one punch, he caves in Malekith's ribs, sending the Dark Elf reeling to the floor. Grimgor pounds his chest, calling himself the best, and Grombrindal rises to his feet. He tells Malekith he's had enough years, and raises his axe once more. Malekith watches his old friend rise, and two possibilities stand out in his mind. He could step away right now and aid the Ordertide further. As a mage of his standing, he would be incredibly useful to them. Or he could do the more selfish deed and try and save his friend. Malekith quickly rushes past Grombrindal and wraps his arms around Grimgor. As he had done once before in desperate times, Malekith forces himself into the realms of chaos, taking the biggest, baddest orc of them all with him. Grombrindal watches on, as it seems just before he disappears, there is a smile on the armoured face of the Witch King. With Grimgor's disappearance, Skarsnik orders that the Greenskins retreat. They can fight another day, and there's no point in sticking around to see who comes out on top of this great mess. The battle between Order and Chaos still rages on, and speaking of rage, Ka'Bandha has entered the field. Seeing the healer as Chaos' greatest threat, he aims his axe straight for Alarielle. Durthu steps in the way but is knocked to one side. Alarielle has had enough of these demons assuming she's weak and calls Orion and Ariel to her side to defeat Khorne's hound. Ka'Bandha lashes against the vines engulfing him, but as the avatar of Isha, Alarielle spends a great deal of power blasting him back to the Blood God's realm. After this fight, her powers are largely spent, and she falls to the back of the Order line so that she can help the wounded still. Malabord and Luin are still racing back to get the King of Bretonnia to safety when they suddenly spill from their mount. Voltan broke the leg of Malabord's steed with his new hammer, and he finishes it off mercilessly while the King and heir rise to their feet. From behind, Slaanesh's greatest general in Azazel joins this fight. Azazel wanted to take the head of a different human ruler, but Luin will act as a decent warm-up. Azazel tries and fails to get the pair to hand over their heads. Malabord already has been tempted by chaos and knows its tricks, and Luin is simply too much of a simp for Zeladi to give in, and so they all fight. Luin duels Voltan while Malabord takes on Azazel. The quickness of the demon is too much for Malabord, even with his youth, and Luin quickly realises he can't hold a candle to Voltan's natural talent. Luin is about to tell Malabord to run so that he can hold the pair off when Voltan's hammer smacks into the side of his head, killing the king instantly. Malabord feels Azazel's claws wrap around his neck, but in the fury of seeing his father die, the young knight manages to break the hold. He grabs onto his father's sword as well as his own, and takes Azazel's head in turn. Voltan and Malabord duel for a while longer. One, a son of chaos, the other, a youth who managed to resist its pull. They both could have been on either side of this conflict at any point in time, and yet here they are. Even with Malabord's talent, the power of the Lady's blessing, and the hatred he holds, Voltan simply outmatches him. Just as he is about to face the same end as his father, Malabord sees Galmaraz, the Hammer of Legend, clash with Voltan's weapon. Franz tells the young knight to retreat as he and Voltan square off for their grudge match. Hammer blows are thrown all over the place. Both sides of the battle seem to take note of this duel, and yet it seems as if once again Voltan will prove an unbeaten champion. When he brings Karl Franz to a knee, however, we see a desperation that Franz has only shown once before. A great golden glow envelops him for a moment, and before Voltan can make his final swing, he is knocked high into the air, his ribs crushed by the blow of a mighty hammer. Standing over him, for a brief moment Voltan doesn't see Franz, but a visage of someone much stronger, a man-made god. The moment passes, and Franz tells Voltan to flee. Even with so many demons felled and their ace out of action, Chaos still pushes ever forwards, and it's largely thanks to Archaon. He is unstoppable in battle, unbeatable, and as he makes his approach towards Teclis, countless warriors throw themselves on his blade just to have a chance at slowing him down. And yet, it seems nothing will stop him. Orion is swept away easily by the flames of the Everchosen, and as he looms over Teclis, all most can do is watch. Karl Franz tries desperately to buy time, but in his wounded state he is battered away, barely breathing on the floor. Archaon points his sword towards Teclis. As soon as the elf dies, chaos may be unleashed. Just before he can burn the world, though, Manfred von Karstein swoops in from above. It is his ambition that will triumph above all, and he stabs Archaon in the back. It is not enough to kill Archaon, but the Everchosen does fall to a knee. Before Manfred can strike again, Archaon rises and slays the vampire. Karl Franz then uses this moment to grab hold of Archaon. He cannot defeat the Everchosen. No one can, but he can instead get rid of him. Throwing himself and a screaming Archaon into the Chaos Gate, Teclis completes his ritual, closing the Chaos Gate and with it, cutting off the winds of magic as we know it from the world. With Archaon and most of the big demons gone, what's left of Chaos finds itself in disarray, left to be mopped up or forced back to retreat towards the waste. And so, we end on a Pyrrhic victory for Order. As the dust settles, the mages of the world feel their powers wane, and that was the cost for pushing the Chaos God's influence away. The world has been wounded, scarred by this great war, but beacons of hope still exist, and Order will need them. For as Chaos and Order have fought to save the world or end it, the Skaven have been taking land across the surface. To survive against the Greenskins and Skaven, the rulers of this world newly crowned, Order will have to remain united or risk being wiped out entirely. Thank you so much for watching. If you've made it to the end of this series, of this video, love you, love you, love you. Thank you so much. Apologies for this one running so long and for it probably not feeling like there's enough detail here. No one is going to be happy no matter what happens at the end times, but I thought a low magic post-apocalyptic setting was pretty cool for a way to Warhammer to continue forwards. Also, there's always the chance that Chaos creeps its way back in. There are still forces out there, but they're more barbarian tribes than demon lads. Anyway, as always, let me know what you think. If you like it, if you love it, if you hate it, just let me know. Thanks again, and I'll see you soon. Love ya.